There is a lot to talk about with eggs. Are they healthy or unhealthy? Why are they so expensive? Are they safe? Where can we get them? Did they come before or after the chicken, and why did said chicken cross the hypothetical road? So many questions, and while I can't get around to all of the answers, well, I probably could, but I won't because it just feels kind of extra. And just because. But I am going to answer some of the really important questions for you because there is a lot to talk about with eggs, and we are ready for the truth about eggs. So, if you're ready for the truth about eggs, if you've ever argued about eggs, if you've ever wondered about eggs, or hoped about eggs, or hanged your hat on an opinion about eggs, or maybe you're not really attached to one way or the other, maybe you're decidedly agnostic. This video is for you, so strap in, turn it on, and get yourself ready because here comes some exceptional egg truth. The jury is in, and we finally have a leg to stand on, and I'm not joking. But just in case you're not up to speed on the argument, let me catch you up. In short, once upon a time, eggs were healthy, eggs were good, then they were bad. Then they were good again, and then they were bad, but then they were good, and maybe they're bad after all, and then they were good, and then they're bad, and then they're good, and then they're bad, and then we get some new information recently that might exempt all that noise from the discussion, and I'm going to unscramble all of the confusion. You see, one thing everyone has agreed about is that they are loaded with extraordinary nutrition. Protein to knock your socks off, lutein for your eyes, numerous metabolites that support cellular health, and of course, fat. Now there's always debate about fats. Eggs have a mix of monounsaturated, polyunsaturated, and saturated fats, about 50%, 15%, and 35% respectively. I'll let you make up your own mind on that one because fat is never straightforward. But I will say that as for me, I find that well within acceptable tolerances. So for me, eggs do not deliver a harmful dosage of saturated fat at about 1.6 grams per serving. Now the anti-egg community, meanwhile, has been singing the same tune this whole time. A song on repeat play with a one-word lyric, cholesterol. And it's true, eggs are lousy with cholesterol, and yes, the bad kind, and we've known it for years and years. When you eat an egg, you are eating cholesterol, and there's no debate there, but the question is as to whether that presents a problem, and this is why. When you eat cholesterol, that's known as dietary cholesterol because it's in your food. But cholesterol in your digestive tract is not a problem. Cholesterol only becomes a problem when it's swimming around in your blood. Cholesterol in your blood is called serum cholesterol, and serum cholesterol is a very established marker for heart disease and stroke. It's the stuff that when it builds up can cause blockages, depriving things like oxygen to things like your vital organs. And when that happens to your heart, that's what we call a heart attack. And just in case you're wondering, I'm here to tell you that heart attacks are bad. You really don't want one. The question people have been debating and arguing about is as to whether that dietary cholesterol then will become serum cholesterol. In other words, when you eat cholesterol, does it go directly to your bloodstream? And we now have an answer. If the cholesterol question has made you balk at egg eating, I have some excellent news for you, and I'll stop beating around the bush. Several recent studies, including a very recent and definitive study published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition last July, confirm that eating eggs does not raise serum cholesterol. And in fact, that doesn't even account for the fact that people in the study who ate 2 eggs per day actually saw a decrease in their LDL cholesterol. Now, just to be clear, LDL, generally speaking, is the bad cholesterol. It's a little more complicated than that, but for our purposes, we can just say LDL is the bad kind and HDL is the good kind. If it helps, you can think of LDL as lousy and HDL as happy. Works for me. And the implications extend beyond eggs here. If the dietary cholesterol from eggs doesn't turn into serum cholesterol, then common sense would dictate that the same may be true of other high cholesterol foods like shellfish and butter. So now we can dunk our crustacean meat into our drawn butter and feel great about it, And that makes me happy, really happy. And so that's the good news. The bad news is that there is a link between diet and LDL cholesterol, but that link is really pointing at saturated fat as the culprit, and particularly the saturated fat found in red meat. There's still more to learn on that point. For instance, it turns out that pasture-raised beef is richer in omega-3 fatty acids, in other words, the good fat. But it's important to remember that our foods generally contain multiple kinds of fat. And yes, even pastured beef has some saturated fat in it, but that's another topic for another day. For now, I just want us to celebrate the excellent news that eggs are healthy. They don't raise our cholesterol and might even lower it. They're healthy, they're delicious, and we can eat eggs with impunity. Well, that is if we can afford them. And if we can find them. Unfortunately, this is where the bad news comes in. It turns out that the food industry has been playing a total shell game with our food prices, and it is infuriating. It just makes my blood boil, and this is important, so listen up. Oh, and while you're at it, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and click on the bell so that you'll be notified when I drop new videos. All those things really help the channel, so if you think this type of content is helpful, I'd love your support. And personally, I think it is important. We've been getting ripped off and extorted, and I think you should know about it. You see, food companies have been posting record profits while they jack up our prices. Their year-over-year dividends are increasing by orders of magnitude. Now, the story we've all been told our whole lives is that the law of supply and demand keeps prices under control because of the invisible hand of the free market. If prices go up, then demand will go down. And in that world, if food companies raise our prices, we will buy less of their product, so it is in their interest to not jack up our prices. But what they have figured out is that we will actually continue to buy the same amount of food even when they raise the price. So in light of that, they no longer have to obey the laws of supply and demand. The invisible hand of the free market is fried, and we're paying the price. People will eat more or less the same amount of food no matter what, and that's what economists call an inelastic demand. And the concept of inelastic demand is actually foundational to how the food business operates on several fronts, and is even partly to blame for all the processed junk that gets passed off as food. In today's story, however, inelastic demand dictates that you and I will eat the same amount of food even when the prices go up, for the simple reason that we're the same amount of hungry, no matter what. In most industries, the higher prices get, the less stuff we buy. But in the food world, our stomachs will tell us to buy the same amount of calories regardless of the cost, and the food industry has cracked the code. They've figured out that they can incrementally increase the price of food, and it has nothing whatsoever to do with partisan politics. They did it under Biden, and they did it under Trump before him, and they're continuing to do it in his second term. So when politicians say they can fix egg prices or blame the other guy for the price of eggs, they are lying through their lying teeth. You don't have to agree or disagree with me on that. Just take a trip to the grocery store and look at the numbers. The food industry keeps raising prices, and they really don't care who's in office. And you, being a smart consumer, might be nodding your head right now saying, yes, that's right, the price of eggs went up because of bird flu, and it had nothing to do with the president. But you would be wrong. Wrong, 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 wrong. Well, not 100% wrong, but mostly wrong. The bird flu hit around 2023, right? That's not an exact number, but it's fine for our purposes. The poultry industry did a lot of squawking about how their birds were all dying off, and so they were suffering and eggs became scarce and expensive, right? No. Wait a minute. That doesn't add up. For one thing, that same year, the profits of our biggest egg producer, Cal-Maine, tripled. There they were telling us how much they were suffering, while their profits increased 300%. 300%. That's not a top-line number, that's profits. Final. All COGS accounted for profit. Now, if that's hardship, I'll take a dozen. I'll take a baker's dozen. That's obscene. It's poaching, plain and simple. And if you look at their stock prices, you see the same thing. It went 4 directions: up, 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 and up. Now, this is some weird economics, right? Their stock prices skyrocketed in 2023 and now again in 2025, and all the while they're telling us that they can't make a buck unless they raise our prices, while their stockholders saw a 40x increase in their dividends. My whole world just doesn't make sense. People in the food industry have even admitted publicly that they raised our prices at a rate higher than inflation or production costs. They are simply making more money simply because they can, and they're doing it at your expense. They pulled the same trick back in 2018 when the African swine fever caused a spike in the price of pork, and we all put up with it because it seemed understandable. But once the outbreak was brought under control, did they lower the prices back to pre-outbreak numbers? No, of course not. They charge more and more, and we pay more and more while they keep spouting the same old narrative. And here lately, they keep spinning this fable that they're in crisis mode because of the mean old bird flu has made it impossible to get enough eggs on the shelf. But if you look at egg production over the past several years, the numbers just haven't really moved that much. The bird flu hardly made a dent in their production. There's an old story about someone who will piss on your back and tell you that it's raining, and I think we have an obvious case of that right now. The price of eggs skyrocketed, and we accepted it because the food industry told us that they were in crisis mode because the avian flu wiped out their production, while in fact, they continued to make plenty of eggs while posting record profits. Meanwhile, the entire food industry has figured out that they can ratchet up food prices, and we'll just pay it while putting the blame on whichever political party we don't like, because our stomachs answer only to the inelastic demand of our physiology no matter who wins the election. Yeah, that's right. Instead of blaming the food companies who actually are responsible for picking our precious pockets, we blame the politicians as if they had anything to do with it. As if we honestly needed another reason to hate politicians. As if the food companies weren't the ones ripping us off in the first place. And most of us won't do a thing about it, frankly, because we're chicken. So, the good news is you can eat eggs. The bad news is that you can't afford eggs. Now, hopefully at some point I'll have better news for you, but for now, it's time to exit this video. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you next time. Ciao.